Good day, everyone. Welcome to Blacklogic. Prosecutors seek death penalty for Charlie Kirk's alleged killer, Tyler Robinson, citing multiple felony charges. Jimmy Kimmel sparks outrage after marking right-wing reactions to Charlie Kirk's murder. Israel opens temporary escape route from Gaza City as military operations intensify. 4 arrested for projecting Trump and Epstein images onto Windsor Castle during royal protests. And the analysis exposes Tethers, limiting Black American wealth and economic advancement. And not just your tethers from the Caribbean and Africa, but those tethers that you may not even see. So Tyler Robinson's case, he's the guy accused of assassinating Charlie Kirk. And the prosecutors aren't holding back. They're gunning for the death penalty. Charges, aggravated murder, obstruction, and witness tampering. And conservatives are crying that Charlie Kirk is now a martyr. And left-leaning outlets are downplaying it, but make no mistake, this trial could define election year violence. I once read a book about how to start a civil war. And I wasn't going to jump into this quickly because I was going to show you my digital library, but I think I will quickly, if I can find that book. And if anybody wants this book, I will send it to you via email. Just leave your email inside of the comment section below. Now, this is my digital library. I also have hard books as well. Some of the books you may be familiar with, like the 48 Laws of Power, which I told you I read each and every year. But I'm jumping here just quite frankly here, a lot of books on the construction of race and capitalism, all sorts of books. I just want to point out there is a book regarding how to start a civil war. And this is the making, and it kind of reminded me of this particular book. Now, I won't bore you too long as I'm searching for this live, but nonetheless, if you need that book, I'll then looking here. Here it is, How Civil Wars Start and How to Stop Them. There it is. Now, that was the book that I was referring to, no less. OK, so again, if anybody wants to have that book, I would send it to you free of charge. Believe it or not, it's a really good book, and understanding how civil wars can actually start and how we can prevent them from starting altogether. Some really good ideas within that book. But I wanted to point that out very early because, again, by making someone a martyr, this is how you spark riots, protests, and all other sorts of things that, again, there's tactics and strategy, the way to stop this so America stays more civil than in the past. I'll just keep it as that. All right, let's move on. So Jimmy Kimmel's in hot water again, and this time for marking the right-wing reaction to Charlie Kirk's killing. He called out how quickly people politicized it, even saying Kirk's MAGA martyr status is a joke. And critics say Kimmel crossed the line, especially after the family public grieving, and late night TV just got a little bit darker. So they're basically saying that Jimmy Kimmel was insensitive to the death of Charlie Kirk because so many people are mourning him, etc. Now, I'll jump right down here to the meats and potatoes, says what to know. On Monday, Kimmel took aim at Trump supporters. We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA Make America Great Again crowd or gang, desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it, the comedian said on ABC programming. Following Kimmel's MAGA comments, he marked Trump's public response to the fatal shooting. When asked by a reporter how he was holding up, Trump had said, "I think very good," before speaking about the White House ballroom construction. He's at the 4th stage of grief. Construction, Kimmel said through audience laugh. This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish. So he was making jokes about the way President Trump responded to the death of Charlie Kirk. Now, I wonder if this is too soon or this is very insensitive. It really matters on what side you take. Are you on the side that you was a Charlie Kirk supporter, or you listen to him, you was a subscriber, you're right wing, you're conservative, or you're on the other side. Now, granted, there are some people, quote unquote, on the Democratic liberal side that are not celebrating. There's a lot of people not celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. There's a lot of people not even mourning it, but there are people on the left as well that's mourning this, and in some regards politicizing it. And I think it needs to be called out, but not, again, this is my opinion. Is it too soon for him to crack jokes about it? Let's talk about it lawfully. Freedom of speech. I said this a lot of times because it's important. Martin Luther King got killed for the things he said, not the things he did. Now, he was making headways. He was leading a charge on civil rights, but that came by the way of protesting, marching, speaking, and preaching. Malcolm X got murdered because of the things he said. Charlie Kirk got killed because of things he said. And some people who he incited hate, he incited slurs, he was telling lies. No matter if you're telling the truth or lies, people in the past, very prominent figures have gotten killed because of the things that they said. So in America, we have the Constitution that grants you the freedom of speech. And what people fail to recognize and to realize is it doesn't excuse you or it doesn't exonerate you from the acts and the things that you may have consequences of. So freedom of speech, but not the freedom of consequence. That's what I'm getting at. So whatever backlash comes out from Jimmy Kimmel, understand that you can say anything that you want in America. You can say anything you want in the entire world, but there's consequences. Now in America, there doesn't supposed to be any consequences. But just yesterday, I reported that you guys that there were legal U.S. visa holders that were talking about and making mockery of Charlie Kirk's death, and Marco Rubio stating that these people will get deported, even though the Constitution gives them the same right because of their legal status of freedom of speech, and that the government should not do anything because of your freedom of speech and that your freedom of expression. But we have already been violating the Constitution hand over fist. So the Constitution only serves you when you agree with it, and you disregard it when you disagree with it. So again, no matter if you think this is insensitive, but he should not have any backlash of the things he stated. He didn't say anything racist. He didn't say anything that will cause more of a divide, would he not? Or is this a comedian making jokes at a very insensitive time that a lot of people are disagreeing with? I'll let you guys be the judge. I'm just looking at this very neutrally of how the many turns that this can take. Israel opens temporary route for residents to flee as troops and tanks push deeper into Gaza City. This is not going anywhere for a while, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately. And the picture you see here on your screen is Gaza City. As I told you, 90% of Gaza City has been demolished. And the UN, out of all people, are basically stating that this is a genocide, that they meet 4 of the 5 criteria of a genocide. Israel just opened Salah ad-Din Street for a 48-hour window, telling residents, and that's the street that you see here on your screen, to flee or face incoming fire. Tanks and troops are closing in and leaflets drop, airstrikes looming. It's survival mode down there, and humanitarian groups are calling it a catastrophe in slow motion. If you notice, a majority of the people are walking. They don't have adequate transportation to ship and drive them to a safe area outside of the war zone. Israel launched a ground offensive yesterday in Gaza City, where Israeli officials estimate 2,000 to 3,000 Hamas militants remain. And the operation in Gaza Strip, largest city, has led hundreds of thousands of Palestinians to flee south. And the United Nations estimated Monday that over 220,000 people had left northern Gaza since mid-August. And the new operation coincided with the publication of a UN report that has concluded that this is, in fact, is a genocide. Ever since October of 2023, an independent panel found Israel committed 4 of the 5 international recognized genocidal acts, including imposing living conditions. As you see here, ladies and gentlemen, there's no way that they can live. There's no place in Gaza City where they can live, because those buildings that you see in the background are all ruins. They're halfway demolished. They're falling down. There's nowhere safe in Gaza for these people to live. There is no safe refuge at all. including imposing living conditions intended to destroy a group. A separate UN affiliate report published last month declared famine in Gaza, as we talked about the starving men, women, and children. And Israel has rejected both accusations and reiterated its intention to control Gaza City, where you got it. The only people that are probably will be left is Hamas and some people who just don't want to leave the city because they were born and raised there. And they say, I was born here, I was raised here, and I will die here. You have some people like that all the way around the world. They just won't leave no matter what's going on. Now, separately, families of Israeli hostages outside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's home over concerns that the ground offensive could further endanger the 20 hostages believed to be alive. Of course it will. I don't know if you guys have been thinking this, but I've been thinking this. What leverage does Hamas have other than those 20 hostages? Does Israel rather, do they have the same mission protocol as America, that they will not negotiate with terrorists? And those 20 hostages, those 20 families that will be grieving? Because now it seems as though Israel is stating that those 20 hostages, it's a cost of war. It's the cost of eradicating terrorism from the region. Look for Gaza to be part of the greater Israel. Look for Gaza to be that. Look for Gaza to be renamed to possibly a biblical city. I don't know. Sodom and Gomorrah? No, that's people. I'm just stating here because I want you guys, again, to look at this it's astonishing, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, they literally destroyed an entire city where millions of people, I think roughly 2 million people were living. And ever since this war has started, over 60,000 plus people have perished. And they allowed this one road for them to flee south so they can evacuate outside of the war zone. The UN stated that it's a genocide. Well, thanks, UN. What is the UN doing? That's the question I always have. What is the UN doing? They're doing nothing. They stated that France and Great Britain were going to come out and look at Palestine as a statehood and possibly provide protections or relief or humanitarian aid, but nothing has happened. Israel has denounced that, one, this is a genocide, two, that they started famine. But I mean, how can Israel is telling the world, do not believe your eyes. Don't believe this. These are lies. These are Palestinian lies. I don't know how your two eyes and the realization that you see here, and for a state to tell you that you don't see what you're seeing, that you literally demolish an entire city looking for 5,000 people. Let's just say Hamas is 5,000, because at one point in time, they had reports that Hamas was 15 to 20,000. And now you continue to bombard the city. And here's the plan, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the plan: to level every single building in Gaza so Hamas has nowhere to run, nowhere to hide except for the tunnels. Now, here's a question. If you level every single building and some of the entry and exit points of the tunnels are in those buildings, are in the basement of the buildings, how are you going to enter the tunnels to rescue the hostages, the remaining hostages? I don't think there's any plan to rescue the remaining hostages. They're calling this a loss. I don't think there's any plan to rescue the hostages, because I showed you, I think, a video clip possibly about a month ago, as we've been covering this, of the IDF, Israeli Defense Force, literally setting charges to buildings that had no people in them and just straight demolishing it. Why would you do that? Why would you hinder the effort of when this battle, when this skirmish, when this war is over, for Gazians, for Palestinians to rebuild their city? If there's no one in the building, again, I believe the reason or the answer is so Hamas has no safe refuge to hide and escape the IDF. That's what they will probably say. But again, Israel had advanced technology. They have the same technology that America has. You know why? Some of them, they've stolen some of our technology, and we know this. We're okay with it because they're allies, right? That's what the reports have. And then other technologies we've given to them because we're partners, we're allies, we're friends. I don't mean you and I just mean that the government. Why not do strategic strikes? Why not do pinpoint strikes? Why demolish an entire city where millions of people were living? That's just the questions I have. We don't want to say too much because we're definitely not anti-Semitic, because if we were anti-Semitic, then we will be talking bad about Israel and Palestinians. For some reason, people do not understand that Palestinians are Semitic as well. Look at the history. Again, Palestinians are Semitic as well. This is what we need to be looking at, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I don't know if you guys are aware that President Trump has visited the UK for the second time for his royal visit. This is the second royal visit. This is, I think, the first time in history that a U.S. president got invited back for the second time. And so the British thought it would be cool, some protesters that is, to use a projection beam to show an image of Jeffrey Epstein and President Trump. This was around 4 activists that projected Trump and Epstein faces on Windsor Castle during Trump's state visit. Alongside it, slogans linking Trump to Epstein's dark past. And UK police, they wasn't amused. They made arrests right there on the spot. But the message that they are portraying here, they stated that it was loud and viral. It's protest theater with royal consequences. It's almost like the British people say, how dare you bring this man again back to the UK and roll out the royal carpet for this man? How dare you? I wonder if any of Jeffrey Epstein's friends were British. Are any of the people in the Epstein files on the Epstein list are British or European that actually live in Europe or part of the UK? I'm just asking questions because does it shock you or surprise you that they have British protesters against Trump's second visit to the royal family, and then they will go to the point where they will project image on Windsor Castle to show the relation between Jeffrey Epstein and President Trump? Is there more here than meets the eye? Is there more here that we need to find out about? Is it something that any of these protesters may know that we're not privy of the information they're in? I'm just asking questions because why go this far, knowing that they could possibly be arrested? This to show the outlandish protests in disregard of President Trump's second royal visit. Why go this far? That's just the questions that I have, ladies and gentlemen. This is what they've done right there on Windsor Castle. They said you invited him for a second state visit to the United Kingdom. How absurd. There would be no tea and crumpets for him. No, sir. That is what's going on in the world. Now, for this last segment, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the real. Black Americans still stuck in what many are calling economic tethers. It's not just about jobs or money. It's policies, housing gaps, inherent disparities, and systematic exclusion. And if you read the book, New Jim Crow, some people are calling it the new Jim Crow. Just dressed in business casual, the chains are invisible, but they're still tight. What we're talking about are tethers that are limiting Black American economic ascendancy and how a lot of these chains are quite invisible. We need to end xenophobia. And the graphic that you see on your screen here, ladies and gentlemen, the people who are in chains are Black Americans. The Black people in the background are African and Caribbean immigrants. And the people that are on the right side of them, and depending on the way you're viewing this, on the left side of them are white people. No matter where they're from, American, Europe, no matter. I wanted to give you a great depiction because it's important that you see the change. That's what I call the tethers, not just the historical change of slavery. No, not that, but the systematic financial mechanisms that have kept foundational Black Americans from economic ascendancy for centuries. We often hear the narrative, Black people just need to work harder, just make better choices, go to school. That is what we hear all the darn time. Oh, you need to work harder. You need a second job. You need a third job. You're lazy. Get off your butts. Go to school. Read better. Do better. But beneath that narrative are the invisible restrictions we're about to unpack. Restrictions forged after emancipation, tightened on the 20th century, and still binding us today. We're talking about the roots of restriction, ladies and gentlemen. After slavery ended, freedom wasn't truly free. Sharecropping, convict leasing, and debt peonage kept Black people tied to white wealth. Did you guys ever read Dr. Claude Anderson's Black Labor, White Wealth? Did you guys ever read this book right here? This is a really good book, no less. And as I told you, I wanted to show you this a couple books to show you some of the research I've done, the books that I've read. Let me show you this very quickly. Here's a great book, The Origin of Capitalism, okay, by Ellen Wood. Here's another book, A Brief History of Neoliberalism by David Harvey. And if you want any of these books that I'm showing you here today, ladies and gentlemen, just leave it in the comment section with your email and I will email it to you. Or in some, you can do a private message through YouTube and I will still email it to you, okay? If you want the books that I'm referring to. And then there's other books. I just wanted to show you some of the top 2 books, but I wanted to give you that information. So you're like, where is he getting this information from? Is he talking out the side of his neck? Because I know a lot of people have been putting certain comments in my mentions about some of the things I've been stating. The only question I have is prove me wrong. People say, oh, you're speaking BS. Okay, no context, no evidence, no proof, no statistics, no metrics, no data, no nothing. See, you cannot argue with the truth, but people will just try to be vulgar and use profanity and say disparaging things. But I don't care because, ladies and gentlemen, Black labor, white wealth. We know who built this economic powerhouse here in America. Families who should have been planting seeds for intergenerational prosperity were instead planting crops they didn't own. Black labor, white wealth, neoliberalism, capitalism. And with this sharecropping on land they couldn't keep, paying debts they could never escape. Then came the banks. Why Black people are in the economic position that they're in today? Oh, they just don't work long. What about the banks? What about the now of loans? What about redlining entire neighborhoods, putting highways and railroad tracks in ponds and lakes where Black neighborhoods were, where we had a substantial amount of wealth? You could work your whole life, save every penny, and still be denied the ability to buy property or secure credit. That's not a bad decision. That is a system designed to hold you back. Well, Blacklogic, there's some Black people doing well. There's some Black billionaires, some Black millionaires. That is smoke and mirrors. That is the mirage that they give you that only a couple of us are doing well. We have 10% of people in Black America doing well while 90% live in a potential state of squalor, even though that, roughly half of us live in the middle class. But look at the conditions that we live in the middle class. And the only reason why we say we live in the middle class is because according to the salary that they consider a middle class, $50,000. But when you live in cities like DC, New York, LA, $50,000 is pennies. Then you should move to different cities. Well, in other cities and in other states, the same jobs and opportunities do not exist. Then if you say, well, you should start your own business, then there's some people who will not do business with Black businesses. When they find out that the CEO, that the owner, that the founder is Black, they tend not to do business with it. So we have to literally, if we start business, stay around a Black community, or if we start a business, never show them that I'm the CEO, never show them that I'm the founder. The system designed to hold you back. People don't want to talk about it. Fast forward to the 1940s and 1950s, the GI Bill was supposed to be a ticket to the middle class. But believe me, many Black veterans who fought, bled, and died for this country were cut out of its promises. They were denied mortgages, denied education, denied the opportunities white veterans leveraged to build wealth. Urban renewal, that's another tether. Thriving Black neighborhoods, self-sufficient communities like Tulsa Greenwood District and the other Black Wall Streets, DC, will bulldoze under the banner of progress. Highways cut through Black business corridors, displacing families and destroying wealth networks. Meanwhile, white flight to the suburbs created locked vaults of generational wealth that were hoarded away inaccessible to Black Americans. You know, I thought about whether it be white flight, redlining, or gentrification. To me, they're all the same thing. They're just different amalgamations and different transformation of how certain demographic people move and transfer wealth. That's what it is to me. Because again, if you fast forward to 2008, the subprime mortgage crisis wasn't just a financial collapse. It was a targeted detonation because Black homeowners were disproportionately steered into predatory loans, even when they qualify for safer ones. If you guys look into the case of Tanisa Coates, the case for reparation, that will give you more insight on what I'm referring to, because foreclosures wipe out what little generation wealth existed, because majority of people's wealth in America comes from their house, comes from their estate, comes from their land. So when you have predatory lending loans, and they knew that a lot of these people could not afford it, because granted, if you just have a job, you're working every day, you go up to the bank, you say, hey, how much can I afford to buy a house? You show them your credit, you show them your pay stubs, your income, you show them your wages, whatever. You show them your investment accounts, your 401ks. You say, how much house can I afford? And again, they have all these different apparatuses and algorithms to show you, well, you know, this is how much, you know, everyday Americans use when it comes to groceries, lights. They go through your finances. So take, for instance, if you your house loan can only account to $200,000. You can only borrow $200,000. But a lot of these predatory lenders were giving them $350,000, knowing that they could not afford the monthly payments. Well, you should have did your research. You should be better in math. Ladies and gentlemen, everybody's in this predicament. Everybody can't hire a financial advisor. Not everybody is privy to hire a CPA. Not everybody is great in math, especially when it comes to the American financial system. Lord have mercy. They made it so darn confusing. These were traps that even common day people, no matter your race, would understand. That is why we had that collapse in 2008. That's just one of the hallmarks. That's one of the tenets. And now in 2025, the gap is still staggering because Pew Research confirms that the median white family has 7 to 10 times the wealth of the median Black family. 7 to 10 times. These are the tethers, the invisible shackles that we're referring to. Anytime it seems that Black people are gaining traction economically and we're slowly closing the wealth gap so they can't keep using the same excuses that Black people are not working hard. We see all these Black people working hard. They tend to look at 1 to 2% of our people and say, that's Black America. You see them booty shaking on the cop car? That's Black America. You see them people fighting in the Walmart? You see them people fighting at Popeye? That's Black America. That's 2% of our population. But social media has done an injustice to white people because now they're showing your debauchery. They're showing your chaotic nature. And again, not all Black people, not all white people. I'm talking to those who take offense to this, because you're only taking offense to the truth. We don't need to go back to all the statistics that I showed yesterday, because people just said that was BS. People told me in my comment section that that was BS, that I was giving them government reports of the violence in America. These are the invisible chains. Because people can't see them, people do not believe they exist. People cannot see them, so they do not believe they can exist. You know how many conversations I've had with people, Black people, Black American, foundational Black American people, who do not understand the invisible tethers, not just the people, but the invisible shackles of the economic system that we live in and how this has been portrayed throughout the course of time, and the certain systematic exclusions that have Black people in the economic position that we are in today. They can't see it because where it says in black and white. Well, these are the things that they did, and this is how they constructed. Well, they didn't say Black. You don't need to say Black if you're writing legislations and bills and policies that affect people in cities and communities that they're majority Black. As simple as that. What are you talking about? They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about these things, ladies and gentlemen. Some people just can't handle complex information and connecting the dots. No one sees We have the propensity in nature, and even if you're taking, let's say, an IQ test or a test about patterns, majority of people can follow patterns, can make out a pattern, something that looks like a face, something that looks like a line, something that looks like a shape in nature or an animal. The way we look at the stars, oh, that looks like a horse. Pattern recognition. Why are we not following and connecting the dots? It's a pattern. The only thing you need to go back, I mean, you can go back as early as slavery if you want to. You can go back, you can go far back as slavery, but you don't even need to go back to the early 1900s and see the progression in economic building that Black Americans had. Then see what occurred where the economic, the economy of the Black community dropped and tanked and bottom out. And then we had to start up again. Then look at some of the Black Wall Streets that we've had around the nation, and then what occurred and how that was destroyed. Matter of fact, I'll give you one footnote. I'll give you one piece of evidence. And matter of fact, I'll do this right now. And if you guys want to do your research, these are accounts that I did not make up, but I'll provide receipts and invoices. An outbreak of racial violence known as the Red Summer occurred in 1919, an event that affected at least 26 cities across the United States of America. Look up the Red Summer of 1919, the race riots. Remember, people were talking about, oh, a race war. They want a race war. No, we know you guys outnumber us. And matter of fact, even if we outnumber you, Black people are just that good-hearted. Not the ones you see that is committing violence. I'm not talking about those guys. But the majority of Black people are very wholesome and loving people. No, either we outnumber you guys, had more guns than you guys, had more strategic advantage than you guys, we will still not want to go to war. This is the Red Summer of 1919. Let me just pop this up so I can show you guys what I'm referring to. American servicemen returned from the First World War only to find a new type of violent conflict waiting for them at home. An outbreak of racial violence known as the Red Summer occurred in 1919, an event that affected at least 26 cities across the U.S. Racial tensions across the U.S. were exacerbated by the discharge of millions of military personnel back to their homes and domestic lives following the end of the war. Competition for opportunities in post-war America combined with a radically changed social landscape placed whites and Blacks in conflict with one another, leading to tragic results. World War I intensified the Great Migration, the mass immigration of Black Americans from the rural South to the industrial North and Midwest in the hopes of escaping the poverty and discrimination of the Jim Crow laws. By the summer of 1919, approximately 500,000 Black Americans had resettled in northern cities. In many cases, northern whites, many of them newly arrived immigrants themselves, did not welcome Black newcomers. They were immigrants themselves. White, that's why I say it doesn't matter. The picture that I showed you guys of the white people in the background, it does not matter what country they're from, whether it be America or immigrants. They were still being discriminatory and racist against Black folk. It does not matter. White supremacy reigns supreme worldwide. They do not care. This is a worldwide system. Whether the war ended, many returned servicemen resented that their vacated jobs, had been taken mostly by Black Americans. Black laborers have already suffered from a negative reputation in the white working community for their use as low-wage earners, strike breakers, or scabs. So Black Americans were the first scabs who would keep factories in operation while the employees went on strike. The situation was made worse in the aftermath of the Russian Revolution of 1917. Many officials and others with little or no evidence suspected Black workers of being pawns of Russian oligarchs. Ladies and gentlemen, are you connecting the dots here? Did you guys miss it? Now, I'm just going to read it once more and we're going to move on, I promise. But I want to make sure you guys connect the dots here. When the war ended, many returning servicemen, let me highlight this, okay, and blow it up even more in case you guys are on your cell phones. When the war ended, many returning servicemen resented that their vacated jobs had been taken, mostly by Black Americans. Black laborers already suffered from a negative reputation in the white working community for their use as low-wage earning strike breakers or scabs who would keep factories in operations while the employee went on strike. The situation was made worse in the aftermath of the Russian Revolution of 1917. Now, granted, Calling black people scabs is already a racist term. Scabs are formed after a wound, and scabs are usually black. See, scabs. I digress, but the point I'm making here is they returned back from war to find black people had their jobs and that they were working for lower wages. Then why didn't the white businessmen fire these black people? Again, why didn't the white businessmen fire these black workers and give the white men their jobs back? Because of money, because of capitalism, because of economics, because they were making hand over fist 200 to 300% more. Because if I was paying you $5, we're talking about the early 1900s, okay, I may be off a cent or two. If I'm paying you $5 an hour and I'm paying this Negro $1.75 an hour, then why in the hell would I hire you back? You was working 8 hours a day. He's working 12 hours a day, and I'm not paying him any overtime. And then when you guys go on strike because of unions and you want to make more money, I hire black people because they're coming in and making less than what you have. They're working more hours and they're working harder. Because why would I hire them if they're not skilled workers? Why would I keep them on board? This is about money. Do I need to do a breakdown of white economics? The same illegal immigrants that white farmers and white businessmen hire, they're the ones who putting American citizens out of work. They're the same ones depressing American wages. Why in the hell would I hire a foundational black American? Why in the hell would I hire a white American, Hispanic American, Asian American, and I can hire people who are illegal immigrants from Mexico, Central America, Africa, the Caribbean, Eastern Europe, China, and India? They're going to ask and take far less than you American citizens. They've been doing this for hundreds of years, and they use the people as pawns and they divide us as such. Come on now, connect the dots. It says it right here. They said that they took the job. No, they didn't. They were offered the job. And what these businessmen were going to do. All the good old boys went to war. The only people they had left because at a certain time in American history, they wouldn't allow a great many of us to join and fight for our country. They wouldn't allow us to do it. But we had some black soldiers, black Marines, black soldiers, black sailors, black airmen, airwomen and such. But we still had a large population back here looking for jobs, still working on plantations. So when the good old boys left the factories in the industrial north, we did the great migration. Like I say, there's jobs up north and we can get the hell out of the South because of Jim Crow. And then some tethers, oh, you guys flee. We flee to a different part of our country. You guys flee from your country. And you're the majority of your country, and you control your own government. It's the difference. We can use the word flee. It's okay. These are the invisible chains, and these are the tethers exposed. Now let's add another layer. Immigration. All immigrants, legal and illegal, depress wages by increasing labor supply, because the National Academies of Science have shown that immigration can lower wages for Native workers in similar industries, mostly those without college degrees. This is where we are, ladies and gentlemen. Now, for foundational Black Americans, this isn't just economic theory, it's lived experience. From the Great Migration onward, Black workers fought for industrial and service jobs only to see wages undermined by waves of cheaper immigrant labor. George Borges, Harvard economist, has documented how immigration disproportionately harms Black employment and earnings. Today, tethers take the form of immigrant competition in construction, hospitality, and service industries, as well as factories and distribution, sectors where Black Americans historically sought opportunities. These workers aren't just competing. They're not just competing. Many are actively undercutting wages, sabotaging access, and displacing indigenous Black labor. There's nothing that you can say to prove me wrong. There's only racial slurs and white supremacist ideology that you can use to try to debunk the truth and fact over fiction. We had leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King. He warned us of this in 1965, testifying even before Congress, no less. He called for protecting Black employment before opening the doors to large waves of immigrants. Dr. Claude Anderson did this. Dr. Martin Luther King did this. Malcolm X did this. John Henry Clark did this. All of these people came out and said the same things. Dr. Cress Wilson talked about this. How immigrants will basically replace foundational Black Americans, now even American citizens. And yet policy went the other direction with the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act. And the result of that act, unfortunately, Black Americans had some help in that because we thought that would be reinforcement, but we were wrong. Our ancestors were wrong, but we understand the strategy. But the result of that Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965 resulted in more tethers. Let's bring them all in. We got more tethers. So when we talk about tethers, we're not just talking about laws from a century ago. We're talking about policies and pipelines today that keep Black Americans locked out of economic mobility, while newcomers often leapfrog into positions that should have gone to us. I want you guys to think about all of the Seneca Valley jobs. I mean, now they're all over the place because Elon Musk, he moved to Texas. People are moving all around the US. But all of these tech jobs, instead of investing inside of urban communities, instead of investing into foundational Black American communities, instead of investing in white American communities to push our children into tech jobs, software coding jobs, computer literacy jobs, coding jobs, AI jobs. No. What we'll do, American businessmen, that is, we'll just go over to India and hire cheap programs, coders. We'll just hire them cheap. We'll bring them over here. We'll give them like 110. They probably should make $250,000 a year, but we'll give them 110. And they can drive their Teslas. They can drive their electric cars and they'll live a great life. They'll live a great life better than they would in India. Yeah. Let's just depress the wages of American citizens and replace all of the tech jobs, some of the doctors, some of the lawyers with people from other countries. It's just cheaper. It's just cheaper. That's how you leapfrog people. So what do we do? That's the question. What do? We break the tethers. That means real policies, reparations, targeted investment, and equitable credit systems that correct history's theft. It means building our own community wealth, supporting Black-owned businesses, teaching financial literacy, creating cooperatives, and demanding protection for Black workers from wage depression caused by unchecked immigration. That's how you break it. It means advocacy and vigilance, not just at the ballot box. Lord have mercy, not at the ballot box. Not just voting for conservative or Republican or Democrat or independent or liberal, whatever. Not just at the ballot box, but in the boardrooms, in city halls, and in classrooms. Because if we don't fight for foundational Black Americans, no one else will. Ladies and gentlemen, we have no friends. You know why they use that term, that we have no friends? Because we understand push come to shove, the allies that we have that may speak up for us, that may march with us, that may protest with us, when push come to shove, they will disappear. Why would I stand with a people and I cannot relate? Why would I stand with a people and I don't look like them? Why would I stand with the people and we share no common interest? Why would I stand with the people and we're not culturally binded? The only culturally binded that we have in this country are with other Americans, no matter their race. Even if they understand Black depression, the Black struggle, the Black downward mobility in reference in economics, even if they understand everything we've been through, everything that we go through, all the exclusions that occur on whatever level that they do, push come to shove, they will tuck tail and run. That is my opinion. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't do business with other groups of people. That would be asinine. We are American citizens, and business and capitalism is the way of life. And do not forget, America is not simply a capitalist society. We are a hybrid. We have bits of capitalism and socialism. Just look at all of the government programs that fork out money to different groups of people, especially immigrants. Here's the truth. Until these tethers are cut, and again, if you guys are just tuning in, I'm not just talking about people when I'm talking about tethers. I'm talking about the invisible tethers as well. When we talk about the economics of foundational Black Americans, okay? There are systematic tethers that people can't see that happens within the system that prevents us from moving upward when it comes to economics. And I'm talking about tethers from other countries. Black Americans, we are running a race we were never meant to win. But the movement, we exposed them. The moment we exposed them, and the moment we name immigration, redlining, predatory lending, and suburban hoarding as the chains they are, we reclaim the power to break free. We have to expose these things. We have to call it out. We have to go to the courtrooms. We have to go to the lobbies and be lobbyists. So I'll leave you with this. Are you willing to see the change for what they are? Or are you just going to continue to believe in that they are invisible and that there is no change at all, that I'm just making excuses? I'm making excuses for us to be lazy. I'm making excuses for us not to go to college or go to trade or start our own business. I'm just making excuses like these things don't exist. No matter the amount of information I've had, no matter the amount of books that I've read with statistics and evidence and proof, no matter, are you willing to see the change? And more importantly, are you ready to help break them? There are certain questions, but that's the only one I have for you.